Brilliant. Okay, so the recording should be starting real shortly. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're recording. Please do, let me know if you have any questions or anything. So yeah, as I said, we want to keep this interactive and want to make sure that everybody's able to be involved and share their thoughts and share their feedback on anything we discussed today. So please use the chat box. So if you see in the bottom right-hand corner, there should be a square that looks like a little chat box. If you click on that, you should be able to type into there any questions or any thoughts or any feedback that you have. So please do make use of that. However, as well, there is also the option to raise your hand. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there should be a small little logo that looks like a hand. If you click that, then you can raise your hand and we'll make sure we get to you to answer, give you the opportunity to share any of your thoughts or feedback. So with that in mind, yeah, today's webinar really is to kind of just run through and discuss some of the feedback and some of the results we got from the Country Readiness Survey. So a couple of months ago now, we shared the SUN 3.0 Country Readiness Survey, which many of you took part in. And basically, it was a series of questions in a survey format to get your thoughts and opinions on the country readiness and your particular country readiness for SUN 3.0. For the use of this is to help kind of inform our decisions and inform our way forward for SUN 3.0. So that we'll discuss a little bit. So I'll present some of the findings from that survey, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards to kind of discuss the feedback and the results from that. Then we'll go on to the next bit, will be the kind of regional roadmap and operationalization. And basically this will be to kind of discuss some of the ideas that have already been suggested and some of the ideas that are implemented by other regions in how they go forward for working together as a region and working together for SUN 3.0 and working as a region as a whole, and how that links into your country work, but also at the regional level and then linking up to the global level as well. So we'll look at that a little bit as well. So I'll present some of the information on that has already kind of some of the suggestions that have been discussed. And then what we'll do is we will open it up for discussion as well. So you'll have the opportunity throughout to really provide as much feedback, provide any information or any thoughts on what is presented and what is discussed as well. We'll also then be hearing from shortly Patricia from the Francophone Africa region, and she will do a short presentation around how they work and what we can learn from them and some of the amazing work that they do in the Francophone Africa region. And then towards the end of the agenda, what we'll do is have a quick short presentation on the Africa Union, the Year of Nutrition. So open that up after the presentation to a quick discussion as well. I know many of you will already be aware of the Africa Union's Year of Nutrition, so it'll be a good opportunity to share any thoughts or any ideas around that as well. And then we'll have a short amount of time for any other business at the end. So hopefully that's okay. There should be the agenda should be in the chat box, so please do have a look at that and reflect back on that at any point. But again, like I said, please do message in the chat box and also add raise your hand at the bottom as well. So with that in mind, really thanks everybody for joining. What I'll do is I'll hand over to Patricia for presenting and introducing the Francophone Africa region. So Patricia, over to you.
Hello, I am here.
Hello.
Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Hello, you understand me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Hello, Andy. I am happy to be able to share the experience of the dynamic put in place by French country, Francophone countries, and all. And I am honored for me to share it with you. I want to you have the presentation? Who shares it? Okay.
Yeah, Morgan's going to share the presentation. It should be happening now. So hopefully you should all see that now. The presentation should be appearing on your screen.
Hello, Morgan and Eve. Hello, all focal points. I want to share the embarking of Sun 3.0, example of the Francophone dynamic to embark on Sun 3.0. The context, I don't see the presentation, why? Ah, yes. The context, vision of the Francophone ExCom starting by focal point Abdoulaye, you know Abdoulaye? They need to access the readiness of country for Sun 3.0, understanding their departure point, their bottlenecks, and willingness to fully represent the Francophone countries during exchange at ESCOM level, request to design a survey to collect data and then communicate, consolidate from peers. I'm embraced this vision and pushing it to the next level, going from regional level to continental level. Timeline, the survey presentation on finding on regional roadmap sharing to place early 2021. Early 2022, Francophone countries had another webinar under my leadership to report on progress and challenges in 3.0 implementation. Currently, they are filling in another survey to identify priority action to guide the support of the Sun Movement Executive Committee in the implementation of EU Years for Nutrition 2022 in line with Sun 3.0. Finding main challenges identified Sun 2.0 versus Sun 3.0. Sun 2.0 challenges. Fundraising came the first 70-60%. Multiple crises putting nutrition as a secondary priority, 48%. The scaling up nutrition-specific activity, 48%. The main contrast being financial. For Sun 3.0 challenges, resources mobilization is the first with 71%. Put nutrition high on the political agenda, coming with 51%. Coordinate all different stakeholders, 48%. These all 3 points challenges are in anchoring. First slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Find the capacity strengthening needs. Resources mobilization, including donor roundtable and innovating financing, is for 81%. Convincing advocacy, 62%. Optimization of the functioning of the multi-stakeholder and multi-sectoral Sun platform, 57%. Accountability to beneficiary mechanism, 52%. Nutrition in emergencies versus Nexus, 52%. Creating a Sun network, 48%. Multi-sectoral approach, 48%. Elevate anchoring of nutrition, 43%. Innovation and in service delivery, 38%. Gender in programming, 33% creating a sun network. The first need is creating a young network for 66%. Next slide. I think that Morgan can present this slide, please. Morgan, can you?
Yes, can you still see my screen? Because I had to turn on my mic and I'm not sure if it's still working. Andy, can you confirm?
Yeah, we can see your screen, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can see the slides?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll continue from there. Yes. So in terms of a product that came out of the survey, we also asked focal points to let us know if there were any areas of expertise that they had and that they would be willing to be considered as a focal person for this specific area of expertise, and we came up with some sort of directory. You have it here. It's a screenshot of the directory in French. But this directory is basically giving us the name and the country of the person, and it's also showing in which area of expertise this person is willing to share their expertise. So we have, in terms of topics, good practices in terms of prevention and management of malnutrition. We have several people for that. We also have innovation in service delivery. Resource mobilization included donor roundtable and innovating financing. Financing for budget support and internal mobilization. Multisectoriality, the multisectoral approach with food systems, education, WASH, social protection, nutrition, education. Governance, we also have people, and the optimization of the functioning of the SUN multi-stakeholder platform. So these are the themes where we have identified people. We are still looking for some more people in terms of knowledge management, for instance. And we will be updating this as we go. And then also from the main findings that were just presented, it was just obviously excerpts from all the findings that we had, because we had a full detailed presentation, but we didn't want to go into detail here. From the findings that we had, we came up with a regional Excel template, a regional roadmap that was presented as an Excel document with all the inputs from countries that were integrated and presented to the countries, with the final agreement found upon with the following main items as a category that you can see here: finances, communication and advocacy, meal, knowledge management and learning, and coordination. So I've included an extract from the finances section here just to show how it was, how it's done. So you have the category, you have then subtopics that are included next to it, then objectives related to that topic, and then suggested activities that were included from all the findings, and then countries were able to have a look through it and indicate whether they wanted to add some activities, or if something was missing, or something should be removed. We had back and forth discussions to make sure that the document really reflected well the country priorities. And we would also ask them then to fill it in and to also mention the type of support that would be requested by the focal point and the timeline for it. So following this agreement on the regional roadmap, each country then elaborated their national one. And lately, as Patricia mentioned, early February 2022, the Francophone countries reported on the progress of the roadmap, of this roadmap for those who had done it, and we were able to discuss on the challenges that they have for implementation. And the next slide is over to you, Patricia. Patricia, c'est à toi pour la dernière slide. On t'entend pas.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Andy,
Yeah.
can you still hear me? Okay. I don't know why. Patricia, on t'entend pas du tout si jamais. Patricia?
Allô? Allô? Allô, c'est bon?
Ah, voilà, ça y est. Oui, 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 c'est bon. Tu peux y aller pour la dernière slide.
Excuse me. I will finish by the next step of the Francophone dynamic. Following the last webinar, Francophone focal points has been requested to fill in another survey to identify priority action to guide the support of the Sun Movement Executive Committee in the implementation of the EU Years for Nutrition 2022 in line with Sun 3.0. Regular meeting will be organized to so that they can report on progress made. Regular ad hoc meeting will be organized to ensure get the input I need to feedback to the ESCOM. Directoring for regional thematic resources will be regularly updated. Thank you. Are you? It's okay. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Morgan, for really, really insightful and really interesting work that you've carried out there. And I think it shows really what incredible work you've done coming together as a region. And I think it really has a lot there for us to learn from, especially within the Anglophone Africa region. I think we can have many similar challenges, and it really shows kind of from the results as well, which I'll present from the Anglophone Africa region shortly, some of the similar results that are clearly universal, that go across all countries from across different regions. And I think some of the work you've done around the regional roadmap, looking at it from the country level up to the regional level and how that feeds into the global level as well, I think was really insightful, and I think something that we as a region will be able to learn a lot from and hopefully kind of replicate to an extent rather than reinventing the wheel. I think it will be a good opportunity for us to use what is already done as kind of a template for going forward for the region. So that's really, really insightful. So thank you so much for sharing that. So what I'll do now is I will present some of the findings from the Anglophone Africa region. So if I share my screen, so bear with me, I'll share my screen. I won't be able to see the chat box, but please do keep adding into the chat box if you have any questions or raising your hand. But I might not be able to see the screen initially, but once we get to the end of the slides, we'll then I'll be able to see the screen again and any comments or messages. Is there any, before I go on to that, is there any questions or any feedback you have for Patricia or Morgan on their findings and the work that they did? I see there's a question in the chat box. Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Sisay Senamo. Patricia and Morgan, thank you. Thanks for sharing. How does the roadmap and the current survey for priority action link to the 22 priorities and advocacy issues indicated in the JAA report?
Thanks, Andy. I'll quickly translate to Patricia offline.
Perfect. So yeah, please do keep adding questions in, and then they can respond to those questions. If you have any other thoughts or any questions around what was just shared. I think as well, yeah. So please do keep adding your questions in there, and I think it's a really, really insightful. I think the slides that we can share as well. And I think, yeah. Patricia, please go ahead. Yeah.
I want to speak in French, please, because I want to that you understand me. I think, je pense bien que ça ne sera pas reflété dans l'auto-évaluation. Parce que déjà, ces priorités, l'auto-évaluation, c'est maintenant que les pays sont en train de réaliser. Ça va se terminer en février. Donc, je pense que les priorités vont être identifiées. Ben, on va le traduire déjà à l'ESCOM. Et je ne me trompe pas que les priorités vont être celles déjà, vont coïncider avec celles déjà identifiées. Parce que ça sera toujours l'année de la nutrition. C'est surtout mettre l'accent sur l'environnement institutionnel, politique, et financier pour une meilleure coordination. Donc, c'est un peu en ligne droite avec Sun 3.0.
Thank you, Patricia. I will quickly translate. So those priorities will not be reflected in the joint annual assessment report. First of all, because the timeline is very short for countries to submit the joint annual assessment, since it's the end of this month. And with the time it will take us to basically analyze the results of the survey, it may not be possible to integrate those. But those results from the other survey we've asked them to complete will be conveyed to the executive committee. And obviously, the priorities should very much coincide and be more or less the same that will be in the joint annual assessment, because they're the country's priorities in any way. So it should be almost the same ones, but it just will not be reported as such in the report itself. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Patricia and Morgan. Dr. Sisay-Sinama, hopefully that answers your question. If you have any more, please do add them into the chat box. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll present some of the findings from the Anglophone Africa results, SUN 3.0 country readiness results. So let me present this now. Fantastic. So hopefully you can see my screen. Let me know if not, and I will start this now. Yeah, please do.
All good, Andy.
Fantastic. Thanks you, Morgan. Okay, yeah, so what I'll do now for the next few minutes is looking at some of the main results from the SUN 3.0 Country Readiness Survey for the Anglophone Africa region. And looking at this from a perspective of embarking on SUN 3.0. So after the successful Francophone Africa Country Readiness Survey, which was undertaken in 2021, as Patricia and Morgan just run us through, the other SUN regions kind of were looking at exploring the possibility of rolling out a similar survey or the same survey across their regions as well. And I think, as Patricia and Morgan's presentation showed, it was a really positive survey that gave some really insightful results. And I think that was why it was seen as it would be a good idea to roll this out across the other regions as well, particularly as we embark on SUN 3.0. So the survey highlighted a need to understand kind of and address the development of nutrition in the region of the SUN 3.0 to maximize the use of experiences, lessons learned, good practices and exchanges, and also looking at those synergies that could come up across the results, really to kind of unify the efforts and really join up those efforts for working together. Reason this was done, so this type of exercise is valuable and important to be able to adequately represent the region. So it was quite of a direct way for countries to be able to feed back and provide insights into their thought processes and their ways of working. The executive committee and being able to establish an identity as a region and really help bring that out in terms of challenges and opportunities from the country level, but also really see where that comes out in a regional perspective as well. And as you'll see from the results that we have, very similar challenges and opportunities came out from the Francophone Africa region, but also the Anglophone Africa region. So really, it's quite interesting to see those universal synergies that come across both regions, and I'm sure are universal across the world as well. So there's certain aspects that I think are really important to kind of keep in mind as we go forward. So 14 out of the 20 countries in the Anglophone Africa region had responded, so that's 70%, which is a really great turnout. Ideally, we would have had a bit more, but that's perfect. I think it gives us a really good scope of kind of the results and good scope of kind of the feelings and thoughts from the countries in the region. So kind of a quick overview, looking at the general overview and key outcomes. Some of the major challenges that countries faced in general were challenges in securing sufficient funding. So 81% of the respondents claimed that put that as one of their major challenges. Lack of human resources in the nutrition team, 69%, which again was the second highest, which also relates to a little bit, I think, in terms of sufficient funding. Having the funding and resources also relates to having the human resources as well to be able to achieve what it is that you need to achieve in country. And then looking at the multiple crises across the country that countries face, that relegate nutrition to the background. 63% of respondents highlighted this as one of the major challenges. And now that's clearly something that we can all understand, especially with everything from political to social to environmental challenges that we face. We know that in the face of COVID, the last couple of years, which has really taken precedent over many things and over all of our lives, I think this was really important to flag that nutrition has, in many cases, been relegated to kind of a lower level and more background discussion, especially within countries and development and humanitarian responses. So major challenges that were flagged in relation to the SUN 3.0 changes. So based on the SUN 3.0 strategy and the information that has been provided so far, the three kind of key major challenges that came out of that were mobilizing resources for nutrition, so that's 75%. And as you can see, that's the same as major challenges countries face in general. So it is clearly having those resources mobilized is clearly a universal challenge that I think many countries face. Strengthening the nutrition systems, so really looking at larger nutrition teams. 56% of respondents highlighted that as the major challenge in relation to the future of SUN in 3.0. So I think that looking at how we can strengthen our systems in country, regionally and globally as well, looking at in particular looking at the nutritional teams that we work with and that we have, and how well resourced in capacity they are. And having a reliable monitoring and evaluation framework and tools, including a robust information system. So 50% of respondents put that as a major challenge for the future of SUN 3.0. And so I think that's a really important point to flag, that ensuring we get that monitoring and evaluating framework continually and improved upon for countries. We know that many countries are at varying degrees of the framework or the tools that they use. So I think it's important to flag that these are highlighted, but some countries are certainly at a different stage in their monitoring and evaluation and potentially their information systems. So I think that's where we can think about cross-learning and peer-to-peer learning for countries that have a more robust information system. So if look here, these are the kind of responses here that came out from the next question, which was looking at how three areas particularly that you would need to achieve this. So really to help you looking at those challenges that we have above, what are the three kind of areas that would help achieve this? And looking at the responses, as you can see there, the biggest ones that came out on top that really looked at needing, I guess, more investment would be training was the number one. A lot more training involved to help improve those challenges and overcome some of those challenges. Exchanges with other countries was one of the big ones, and tools, including documents and formats. So really looking at ways in which we can provide training and ways in which we can utilize training that is available, also utilizing tools and documents that are available, and looking also with exchanges with other countries. We know that peer-to-peer learning is probably one of the best ways that countries learn from one another, and that we all learn from one another, even in our personal lives, but also into kind of on a country context and on the wider scale. So I think looking at exchanges with others and other countries, I think will be a really beneficial way. And it's definitely highlighted as one of the key ways for supporting one another and helping to overcome some of the challenges stated above. So some of the topics that we would like to be reinforced and really kind of taking into SUN 3.0 that are really important. There was three key points and responses that came out from the people who responded, from the countries that responded to the survey. Three ones that kind of stood out amongst the crowd. So the full list is there that you should be able to see with the percent of the country. If you look at the percent of countries, really showing the respondents' percentage. The three are highlighted in the red box and these are mobilization of resources, including roundtable and innovative financing. The making an impactful advocacy, so looking at advocacy and how it can be improved upon to be really impactful. and optimizing the functioning of the Sun multi-actor and multi-sector platform. So the MSP in country that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Those three really came out as standout areas for reinforcement for the future of Sun 3.0. So looking at those three as really key important moments for taking forward and actions to take forward to ensure that we can improve upon and work on for Sun 3.0. However, that does not mean that the others are not as relevant. So there is certainly some significant respondents to some of the other points that were raised, and in particular, the nutrition in emergencies, the nexus, the humanitarian and development nexus, I think that comes out there was at 50%. So as many of you know, that is a really important point that we need to address and look into for going forward into Sun 3.0. But all of these are really important, and I think some that we do well and some that we can improve upon will be good to keep in mind. And again, these are just kind of initial responses from the survey. So we want to, as a movement and as a country-led movement, we want to make sure that any ideas or any thoughts or any ideas on how to improve this is more than welcome. So we do encourage any kind of feedback on these points or any ways of improving. So looking at resources in the region, from the countries who responded, they were willing to offer successful experiences to other countries in the region, highlighted the following in the table below. Now, I won't go through this entirely, but it's just there kind of detailed out what the countries that responded, kind of some of the highlights and some of the key areas that they put in as areas that they can support on. And this looks into kind of the peer-to-peer learning and that country-to-country learning. And I think that's one area that we can utilize by looking at which countries have really successful experiences, and many of these experiences will be areas that other countries would like to improve upon or build up more. So I think that by looking at these experiences and looking at these successful experiences that are open for sharing will be a really important thing for countries. And I will share these slides at the end afterwards, after the call, so you'll have an option to see these slides. They'll be all emailed over, so you can review them and look through them as we go forward as well. So we encourage you to have a look at this slide as well. If there is any of these areas that you can see that you think that's something that we're working on or something we would like to work on or something that needs improvement for your country, then please do let us know, because then we can make sure we link up and provide that peer-to-peer learning from these countries. So looking at the next series of questions was nutrition integration. So current and desired at national level. So really looking at the current level for nutrition integration, and then also thinking about the desired level. So really thinking about the future and how that goes, where we would like to be for nutrition integration. So the responses from the current level of integration in country varied from low to high. So we know that many countries all countries are working at a specific kind of tailored focus. So we know that some responses will be low and some responses will be higher. However, all had highlighted at least there was some level of integration of nutrition in the country, but improvements are needed. So even the ones that stated that the nutrition integration was high, there was still areas for improvement. Even the ones that rated low, there was some level of nutrition integration. So I think we're all on the right track, and I think that's what's really come out of this is really great, that there is everybody's on the right track. It's just making sure we all get to that same level and get the kind of way to improve to the kind of higher level shared and trained, and we can all work together on that, and specifically at a region as well. So some key successful factors were kind of engagement from multiple stakeholders. So the government, UN, civil society, academia were all mentioned as key successes in nutrition integration. And I think that's one of the key areas, is really looking at how we work as the multi-stakeholder platform in country and how that comes together to really help integrate nutrition as a country as a whole. Another successful area was the national and subnational level, district some as well, integration. That's definitely seen as a key factor in being having successful nutrition integration in country, is really working at that subnational level as well. Really brings it to the country and community level for nutrition integration. Food and nutrition security interventions are integrated into the annual sector plan. So really looking not just within the kind of nutrition sector and nutrition field, really broadening that out into the kind of multi-sectoral ideas and ways of working. So looking at different areas and in particular looking at the annual sector plan for the country and really integrating food and nutrition security interventions into that, I think has been another successful factor that was highlighted. Many sectors have and are realizing the importance of nutrition and playing an integral role in their functions. So this relates to kind of the advocacy work that you all do and really, I guess, highlighting how important nutrition is. And I think as we've seen over the years, the improvement and knowledge and awareness that has come from other sectors and other areas are realizing how to achieve their goals and achieve what they want to achieve, that really it is underpinned by nutrition and how nutrition underpins kind of and will support, so improving nutrition will support them achieving their goals. And I think that's been a really great success. And I think that some of the factors that were coming out of that were really nice to see, that seeing the wider picture and helping others see the wider picture of how nutrition plays a role in their success as well. In Ethiopia, the Secretariat Declaration was highlighted as a really key good example, and I think that's a really great one to showcase. And I think that's something that was said by Ethiopia as a success story, willing to share, and I think it's something that we can be really can be used to share with other countries as an opportunity to really learn from and use as a template almost to go forward for developing that in their own country as well. And then ensuring national development strategies have nutrition as a key priority. As we know, COVID has, as I mentioned earlier, COVID and other factors certainly do become quite important and front of mind and front and center in certain issues. And ensuring that any national development strategy places nutrition as a key priority is what's I think going to be really important for going for the future. And what level of integration would be desirable was the next question. So looking at the national level, how that integration would be desirable. As you can see, there's kind of the list down the left-hand side, which many of you will be familiar with, either working or very familiar with in terms of engaging with. And the responses on the right-hand side as well. So looking at where the respondents said integration would be desirable is highlighted there through that. I won't run through all this because there's a lot of text on here, but I'll just highlight a few key points and then we'll move on to the next slide. But I will share these slides so you can read through these a little bit in more detail later. But looking at what level of decentralization is currently taking place, and what the ideal level of nutrition coordination at a decentralized level would look like. So the majority of respondents indicated that decentralized approach was taking place in their country. So at the subnational, ward, district, provincial and community levels, which is fantastic. And that's really what we want to see. And I think that's really what helps drive and push forward nutrition when it's coming from all levels and not just kind of the higher levels. And then looking at the ideal way of going forward, the majority of respondents highlighted the ideal position of the nutrition coordination for decentralized level was at the subnational level. So looking at that regional, ward, district, provincial and community levels, really coming out, many of the countries emphasized that community level was the key area of a decentralization. So really thinking about where we're at now and how we can go from there to improve a more decentralized approach. And there are many lessons learned that we can share, and many countries have done this successfully. And I think that's one key area that for countries that are still working on this, how we can help them through sharing the knowledge of achieving that. Finance and budget. So looking at, does the government financially support nutrition? Obviously the majority have said yes, which is fantastic, which I think goes to show the incredible work that you all do in the day-to-day work. And I think, having over 80% say that yes, that it does is fantastic. But there obviously are still countries where it is a little bit less with government financial support. And also looking at budget exercises and how we can do this through more budget tracking to ensure that the financial support is followed through. So over half respondents were unsure about the actual percentage of the national budget on nutrition sensitive. Again, this I think comes down to looking at how we do budget tracking and budget analysis. And I think that is been highlighted as one of the key areas for technical assistance and training that we can provide, and we need to provide as a Sun movement to support countries to really look at how the government is spending, how much, the amount and the percentage of the national budget on nutrition sensitive work. And key actions respondents plan to take to increase state financial support. So a couple of the points that were highlighted were advocacy, resource mobilization, and multi-stakeholder engagement. So those three were really highlighted as some of the key actions that countries will take to help increase the state financial support for nutrition. So I think that's a really important one, is really ensuring you have your advocacy, your resource mobilization, and that multi-stakeholder engagement right. And I think that's where we'll come from, getting best practice from other countries to utilize for countries that are kind of want to improve on that in one of those three areas, or all three of those areas. So moving forward, so looking at highlights from 2021. So this really was reflecting on 2021, as we're just at the start of 2022. So really thinking how we'll further position nutrition. And development and implementation of nutrition plans, strategies and policies. So really having those nutrition plans, those nutrition strategies, various policies in place, and ensuring they are developed and implemented is going to be one of the key areas for moving forward. Many of you will already have these in place, and many of you have really fantastic ones in place as well. I think looking at how we strengthen them, keep them relevant for the future as we go forward, but also supporting countries that are in the early stages of the development of these plans and strategies and policies. Looking at coordination as well, thinking about government and key stakeholder coordination and engagement to achieve that buy-in. As we saw earlier in the earlier slide, that that awareness from other sectors has improved, which is fantastic. And I think looking at how we can continue to do that, and also bring other departments along, maybe other government departments or other sectors along, to really be aware of the importance of nutrition in the ways they're working and how they can achieve their goals as well. So really bringing together that coordination level for working together. Resource mobilization and meal strategies, established and costed plans to strengthen the meal work and securing financial support. Of course, these are common themes, especially resource mobilization, that come out throughout the survey. I think it's really important that we keep that in mind, that resource mobilization and donor engagement is really key to be able to achieve many of our goals and many of our points that we want to work on. And so I think that's really important to keep that donor engagement, and through things like the joint annual assessment and N4G commitments, we will be able to use them as leverage for engaging donors for supporting countries. And also looking at Sun networks, so establishment and operationalization of Sun networks. So we know that the Sun Academia Network in Tanzania helped to facilitate nutrition evidence, but that's also the case for all the other networks in country. So we know many of you are part of that run that multi-stakeholder platform in country, and so it's really important to have those established and operationalized to really help move the nutrition agenda forward. Suggestions for the Sun Secretariat to improve the implementation of Phase 3, so Sun 3.0. So these were some of the key feedback that we got on how we can improve the Sun Secretariat for the implementation in Sun 3.0. So high-level engagement, really looking at those meetings, advocacy, advice, high-level political individuals and key stakeholders, how we can utilize those moments and those opportunities to really bring in engagement from key individuals and key departments to really move forward the nutrition agenda and keep it a high priority. Mentoring and knowledge sharing, again, discussing about that peer-to-peer learning, sharing best practice, knowledge, lessons learned, challenges as well. And we know that many, when you come together and two countries have similar challenges, they can work together in how they both overcome them, but also sharing countries that have overcome those challenges as well. Capacity building and technical assistance and training. Of course, this is one of the key areas that we want to keep improving on and keep working on. So from finance and resource mobilization, stakeholder mapping, advocacy, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, really looking at those key areas that we can provide capacity support for, technical assistance and training on. And then the final one that was a way that we can support is through resource mobilization. So ensuring those financial resources and opportunities are communicated and disseminated to countries. I think that's a really key one that we need to keep in mind for bringing in resources to help do and conduct the work that we do. So I'll leave it there. Basically, I'll open it up to the floor now for any questions and discussion. I will stop presenting. Yeah, so please do, if you have any questions, please do put your comments in the chat box. And if you have any things, please do raise your hand or please speak out. So I'll open the floor now to any feedback, any thoughts or any questions to everybody now. Yes, Ben, please.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks so much. I also put a summary of what I'm going to say in the chat box now. One thing that also came up from our side here, and we also picked it up from other civil society alliances, is that there's a huge, because we are civil society, we highly depend on donor funding. And when you apply for donor funding, you always have to fit into the niche that the donor is currently funding. And of course, you have then those periods where you have donor funding and you have periods in between donor funding. And being part of the Sun movement brings great benefits, but it also is quite time intensive sometimes. The reports, the assessments, the engagement, and so forth. And that also translates into staff costs and so forth to fulfill that function of being an alliance. And membership fees alone will not cover that. So I think a plea in terms of moving forward is to really ask for some form of constant core funding to national alliances to be able to make it through those periods of not donor funding, and to really ensure that we can fulfill our function within the Sun movement, which may not be covered through the other donors that are funding, because that's not part of their agendas. So I think that is really something that a lot of CSAs are struggling, and I feel it's important to bring it up in terms of moving forward. And if it's not something that one can commit to, at least I think it's something that should be lobbied by the CSN within the global Sun network to other parts of the global network to say, can we use, activate the global donor network or whatever to make sure that the civil society network and its alliances in different countries are sufficiently, receive a basic amount of funding to get them through those periods that I mentioned and fulfill their core function within the Sun movement. Sorry, that's now a bit of a longer ask, but the summary is in the chat.
Thank you, Ben. That's really, really interesting. Yeah, and I think resource mobilization is really important in this, and I think that's a very wide point that I think that affects all the Sun networks. I think there are certainly discussions happening around how the Sun donor network can provide more support for their sister networks in country and ensure that they have those opportunities available for other countries, for the other Sun networks in their country, sorry. And I think that's really what we need to look at, is how we engage the Sun donor network in not just at the global level, but at the country level as well. We know that the Sun donor networks is present in many countries, and really opening that that discussion and those opportunities for everybody. But yeah, no, thank you very much. Patricia, I think, is that your hand that's up? Or Delia?
Hello? Yes, I
Hello.
want to speak.
C'est bon, Patricia.
Please.
Vas-y.
Hello? D'accord. Merci. Excuse me. Thank you for the clear presentation. I have some preoccupation. We are very happy to see that we have a lot of similitude apart from some point which will facilitate the formulation of support for the ESCOM. However, I need some clarification on some point, please. I want to speak in French now. Le premier point, c'est l'ancrage. For the anchoring, I see that there is a 38% for the anchoring at the Ministry of Finance. Alors, je voulais comprendre pourquoi les finances. Parce que parfois, si c'est le cas, on pense qu'en mettant au niveau des finances, on aura plus d'argent, on va les sensibiliser. Mais moi, par expérience, je voulais dire déjà quand c'est à la primature ou à la présidence, ça fait office d'une priorité pour les ministères des Finances qui sont en dessous du Premier ministre et même du président de la République. Ça, c'était le premier point. Le deuxième point, c'est toute la question de la mobilisation des ressources. C'est pareil pour nous, les pays francophones, c'est ressorti comme le premier point. Ça veut dire qu'il y a un réel défi. Et ce réel défi, je me dis, il n'y a pas assez de ressources en matière de nutrition au niveau mondial, il faut se le dire. Il ne faut pas qu'on traîne là-dessus si on veut régler le problème de la nutrition. Est-ce que ce n'est pas maintenant qu'il faut penser ces fonds innovants? Comment les pays vont mettre en place des mécanismes propres à eux de mobilisation des ressources? Et c'est vrai que le mouvement sonne, je profite pour dire, nous, on a, là, il y a la revue des fonds communs. C'est peut-être mettre plus l'accent sur les réseaux, mais pour les plans d'action, c'est vraiment aujourd'hui que les pays doivent penser comment mettre un peu plus. Ça, je sais que c'est ça qui est derrière. Il n'y a pas d'argent au niveau mondial, c'est ces mécanismes innovants. Je voudrais m'arrêter là déjà pour la traduction, pour ne pas faire trop long. Merci. Merci.
Thank you, Patricia. I'll try to give as much details as I can. She spoke a bit fast. In terms of, she was wondering in terms of the anchoring. She noticed that 38% of respondents indicated that the anchoring should happen at the level of the Ministry of Finance, and she was wondering why the Ministry of Finance. She added a comment saying that sometimes. You may think that you will sensitize more the Ministry of Finance if nutrition is there, but you may not get that level of funding, and the advocacy may be a bit difficult. She thinks that at the presidential or prime minister level, it might be easier to get this advocacy done, and that it could translate it to more funding for nutrition. The second point is therefore related to the financing of nutrition, that countries don't have enough resources, and that innovative financing should be able to help and should be maybe the priority, and where countries should put their efforts in to increase the funding with thanks to the emphasis and the support of some networks. But she thinks that's key for countries to basically put more money into nutrition using those innovative mechanisms. Over.
Fantastic. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Morgan. That's really, really insightful. Yeah, and I think, yeah, like you said, I think maybe Patricia, you answered the question yourself. I think with 38% looking at that Ministry of Finance, seeing that sometimes seen as, you know, they hold the purse strings, as you will, they hold the money. So sometimes I think there's a sense that having nutrition placed in there, it might sometimes be able to advocate better for its spending on that. But I think you're right in terms of looking more at the presidential or prime minister level, that might work a little bit better in terms of advocacy for kind of where the money and the finances is spent in the end. But I think you're right. I think, yeah, you answered kind of what your point was, that I think it's really important to kind of make that point that the Ministry of Finance maybe isn't always the best place, although it seems like it could be a good place to put the nutrition and really have that place for framing nutrition, but sometimes I think for looking at the bigger picture in terms of advocacy, it'll be better placed elsewhere, particularly in the Prime Minister or presidential level. And then looking at the new financing for nutrition, innovative financing, yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. And I think really reflecting on that to increase financing, I think is going to be important, and really looking at how we can do that. Really looking at some practical ways of innovative financing, I think is what's going to be key for going forward. Because, yeah, like you said, the resource mobilization clearly comes out as a challenge across the region and also Francophone region as well. So I think that looking at that innovative financing piece and really highlighting clear actions that we can use with that to bring that and make it more, to provide more funding and more funding available and financing available for nutrition, I think will be key. So I think that they're really great points to highlight, and I think they definitely came out from the survey results for discussion. Thank you. Opening the floor now. Yeah, anybody else got any questions? I haven't gone through the chat, so if there's any questions in the chat, please do just speak out. Happy to. Yes, Dr. Sise. Yeah, Dr. Sise, please do feel free to unmute. Dr. Sise Sanamo, I see your hand is up. If you have any, please do feel free to unmute and speak. You're muted at the moment. Dr. Sise Sanamo, I think your hand's gone down. So please do type it in the chat box. If you have anything, please do unmute yourself and talk. But with that in mind, what I'll do is there any... can I unmute you from your side? Let me have
No, we can't, Andy. I checked. We can't do it. Unfortunately, he has to do it himself.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, we can't. So I think if you look on at the bottom of your panel, there should be like a little microphone that you can press, and it should either go red.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Amazing. No worries.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Of course, I'm still new to learn on this platform, but two things I want to suggest, especially from the high-level engagement support perspective from the Sun Secretariat. I think one of the things is currently we have the African Year of Nutrition, which is our leaders have endorsed with a recent AU General Assembly. I think we can use that one, to catalyze the nutrition investment and commitment in the African continent. So I think expect now the Sun Secretariat to have more engagement with the higher government leadership in our respective countries and member states, to follow up where we are in terms of delivering our commitments for the African Year of Nutrition. The second one is, I think, from the also advocacy perspective, we have also made a commitment during the N4G summit held in Tokyo late last year. So a number of stakeholders have already made commitment. For instance, for our case, our finance minister was there, state minister was there in the side event that we have organized for the Sakota Declaration. So I think that will be also, followed up, from the Sun Secretariat perspective. We are also, of course, following up on that one, but it will be helpful also. It will create a momentum, for the in-country commitments that we have already made to avail finances from the domestic sources. So I think we have both from the high-level engagement perspective, from the regional commitment, but also from our in-country commitment for N4G. Those are two opportunities that at least we can use in 2022 to catalyze there's a financial commitment for nutrition with support of Sun Secretariat. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I think that they're both really key, great opportunities to use and leverage, especially the African Union Year of Nutrition. I think that high-level engagement will, like you said, really play a key role for engaging the commitments, and in particular financing and funding commitments as well. And then, yeah, like you said, N4G commitments. We had the big N4G event last year. So yeah, I think you were really right in that's how we can utilize that and really leverage that opportunity and those commitments to bring on board more donors and bring on board more financing and funding to support countries. Okay, with the time, what I'll do is I'll quickly go through another set of slides, which is the operationalization of the Anglophone Africa region. This is based on some discussions that we've had so far and kind of some feedback that we've received already. So really, it is just a very top line kind of discussion, and I wanted to just share it with you today, just to kind of run through some of the ideas that have been floating around and some of the ideas, the ways of working. So again, this is just a very open discussion, and please feel free to type in the chat box and any questions you might have or any thoughts, and we'll go through this at later dates as well as we develop the region and strengthen the region as in the future as well. So let me just open this up for you. So hopefully you can see my screen. I think that should be working now. Let me know if you can't see, but hopefully this should be looking at the slides on your screen now. But yes, looking at the Anglophone Africa SUM 3.0 operationalization. So moving forward as a region, so really thinking about how we work together as a region, but also some of the discussions that we'll get to in a later slide, how that can come together as a more as an African continent as well. So some of the ideas that have been presented so far are some things that you'll be majority, I'm sure you'll be very familiar with. Some of them have been happening or going on in the past, and it's really about either developing them or kind of reigniting them into a kind of a new system for bringing new people on board, if there are new individuals involved, but also kind of getting those systems working. Again, I'll share these slides afterwards, so you'll have these to reflect upon and refer back to. But looking together at working together principles, so developing some sort of principles, how we work together as a country, as countries within the region, covering items like meeting regularly, outlining roles and responsibilities for the focal points, looking at those principles, having a few key set of principles that we can all kind of align and follow for working together. Having these country calls, so looking at regular country calls with not only the country liaison team, which will soon be the country action team, regional representative, but also giving the space and opportunity for countries to share these challenges, progress, capturing good practices and lessons learnt. Having those regular country calls will be kind of a good way of working with and connecting with the regional representative. Regional meetings, so establishing a date and time for regular regional meetings on a quarterly basis was suggested. Of course, this can be more frequent, less frequent, depending on kind of the feedback from people. But at the moment, the initial feedback, initial suggestions were looking at a quarterly basis and really looking at doing it virtually for those regional meetings, but also having potentially more, maybe annually, a more regional focused in-person meeting, a little bit like many of you be familiar with the Global Gathering, looking at that from a regional perspective. Is there opportunities that we can utilize there to bring everybody together from a regional perspective? WhatsApp groups, of course, I'm sure many of you are aware and a part of, could be a great way to communicate and really bring people together on a kind of day-to-day action point based and supporting one another through quick direct action and direct messaging WhatsApp groups. Mailing list, of course, we want to make sure that the mailing lists are up to date. Everybody, all the focal points and technical focal points are on those mailing lists, so we can ensure that everybody is updated quickly and clearly with any updates from this wider Sun movement. A buddying system was also suggested. This is undertaken in the Francophone Africa region, and it has been a really great success in looking at how buddying different countries up together who maybe have similar challenges or similar, who are maybe have been through similar challenges so they can support one another. Looking at developing a buddying system has been a really great success that helps support one another in that peer-to-peer kind of level of working. And expertise forum. So developing a database or some sort of platform across the focal points to find out who might be able to provide technical assistance and cross-learning. So rather than having to rely so much on the global level and waiting for responses or waiting for other people to be involved, really looking at across the focal points across the region and who can support one another with expertise on any technical assistance they might be able to provide. So there's some of the ideas that came up so far. Again, you'll be familiar with many of these. So the regional roadmap. So based on the discussions today and the SUN 3.0 Country Readiness Survey, developing a regional roadmap could be a possible way forward. As you saw in Patricia and Morgan's presentation, they discussed how the Francophone Africa have developed the regional roadmap, and that has been a really great way to have that alignment from the country level to the regional level and linking it up to the global level as well. So I think that's been a really interesting and great way of bringing the region together. Of course, we can use the Francophone Africa Regional Roadmap as kind of a template of how we might go forward. And I think having that as a template and aligning both regions is beneficial for all, because then it means that we can have that easier cross-learning, but also making sure that they're tailored for the region as well. The regional roadmap would look to be kind of top line and provide just a bit of an overview, and then feeding in from there would be kind of national roadmaps, as was discussed in Patricia and Morgan's presentation, with those kind of key actions and indicators for how we move into and transition into and move through SUN 3.0 with a successful region, successful countries as well, and a successful SUN movement. So really looking at the regional roadmap as one key option as well. This also is a kind of a new thing that's been discussed, but it's kind of looking at the joint Africa continent for SUN 3.0. So as we know, many countries in the two SUN regions in Africa, the Francophone and Anglophone, have and face many similarities, and they're not divided by linguistic lines. So I think it's really important that we look at those kind of similarities and how we can work together and not just divide things by linguistic lines. And I think this has been flagged, and it's a really important point to really see and look how we converge the two regions to bring together kind of a united continental approach to this. And I think as we discuss the Africa Union and shortly, Year of Nutrition in particular, I think that's one key area that we can really come together as a SUN movement for the continent. And strengthen our nutrition voice as a movement and as a continent, rather than kind of divided by linguistic lines. So yeah, positioning and strengthening both regions in the African Union's work and plans, developing regional meetings and events for all focal points to come together. So looking at the opportunity to bring the Africa continent focal points together to work collaboratively, look at strategizing, and how we can work together and have that unified voices. In particular, I think this works really well with kind of advocacy and bringing, raising the kind of voice for those advocacy moments. Thematic joint calls based on the areas of work. So looking at, of course, like I said, there's many similarities, many challenges and many successes are universal across the continent. So how can we have those thematic joint calls based on those areas and bringing them together for everybody to be involved in. But also looking at the kind of reflecting on the kind of important parts of this is the ensuring that we have the budgets for this. Obviously, translation, the linguistic lines were there, I guess, because the different languages that are spoken, but really thinking through how we ensure that those language barriers are overcome through ensuring we have the budgets for translations for these meetings, calls, whatever the opportunities might be. So I think that's really important to remember. But just to put that out there, and just that this has been flagged and has been raised as an important point, and it would be great to kind of, yeah, get your thoughts. So any questions and discussion basically on what you've seen there, I will leave it there. I'll open the floor and bring it back to everybody. So please do share any thoughts, any ideas with what you've just seen. We'll share the slides again later, so you will have more opportunities to go through this as the regional roadmap and regional way of working is developed further. But yeah, it'd be great to get any thoughts. Please do add it into the chat box or raise your hand and let us know if you have any questions or thoughts so far. Yes, Mary, please.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Thank you for the presentations. I see from the way forward that the emphasis is more on working together, and that is great. But I thought that we would reflect a little bit more on the issues about funding, I mean, the challenges, especially with 2.0, and how we address those head on going into 3.0. That's my first point. And the second point has to do with the architecture for engaging with regional bodies. We are going to have these regional hubs, and I don't know whether you've thought through how we engage with the AU, whether it's going to be with AUD, NEPAD, which also looks at the CADEP issues, and whether or not you are going to have the Sun Movement representative there. I don't know whether that has come up, discussions. I think it's very important. I know that other UN agencies, of course, embed their staff within the AU and other places just to create those synergies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, really, really great points. And I think, at the moment, I don't think there has been any movement on embedding Sun Focal Point in the Africa Union. However, I think that is a really important point that needs to be kind of flagged and raised as we develop this. So it is still kind of relatively early days. I mean, not so early, but we're still in the kind of formation of these regionalized approach. So I think it's really important that you flag, like you just have, points about that in terms of how we ensure that architecture is there and structurally we are engaged with these regional bodies. And in particular, the Africa Union, how will the relationship work and how will this regionalized approach work to be engaged? So I think, really great points that I think that are definitely pertinent to ensure we remain engaged with these regional bodies and have those opportunities that they provide available to the countries in the region. So yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts or any questions or any ideas? Please do share.
Hi, Andrew. This is Isai.
Yes, Isai, please.
My question is specifically on the country roadmap. I think Mary raised about the regional roadmap. At country level, there are country strategies and country nutrition action plans. So what does this roadmap differ from that? And also, if it is only looking after how we can operate as Sun networks, does this only involve those functions, or it can also help the country action plans or the country strategies? Because we just concluded our country roadmap and also country strategy. I wanted to see the difference between this one and also the ones that we have already done. Thank you.
Thank you, Sisay. Yeah, that's a really great point. I think in terms of the country roadmap, absolutely, I think utilizing what you already have would be a great way. I'm not fully sure. I don't know what the full mechanism. I guess we need to make it work for what works best for the countries in region. So yeah, I'm very open to from a region, I guess it's up to us to entirely decide how we want to make this look and make the roadmap look. So I guess really it is up to yourselves and the regional focal points and ExCom focal points for the region to really come together and decide how this might look in the end. So I think that's the really important point, is thinking what works best for you, I think will be important. And I think really engaging in and inputting into that to make sure that we provide that design, if you will, for the roadmap. We can use the kind of structure or template-ish from the Francophone region, but also, of course, that's just a suggestion. Certainly, we can tailor it and design it as we see fit for the region. Patricia, I think you had your hand. Oh, Steve, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Maybe just quickly to respond to what Mary said, and about whether the SMS has already thought about embedding people in the AU and other things. I think that I think it's good this way, that the SMS capacity will be very modest at the beginning, at least, and we hope to build up from that. I think that the regional representative will be by themselves in the region, at least for Anglophone Africa at the beginning. And I think we will, obviously, as soon as funding comes in, grow that. And I think that's where it's critical that all the countries in the region come together to agree what the priorities are, so that if we find investment to increase the size of the SMS regional hub, that person then reflects that. And if it's, whether it's increased capacity in governance and how we work better with the regional bodies, or is it someone that's more financed to look about a regional approach to fundraising, that needs to come from you guys. I also think that it's quite clear that the SMS should not necessarily be doing any of this. I think all the countries, all the UN agencies, and even CSA sometimes, they have their own privileged links with these regional bodies. And I think it's more about the SMS and this sort of approach to make sure that the messages and the coordination that comes through these existing links also includes nutrition, that the nutrition messages are aligned so they come across loud and clear, so that without any extra manpower as such, that the nutrition messages can be passed and strengthened at the regional bodies through the existing links that countries have, individual countries, that the UN has, and others. So just a thought that this is something in construction. We would like to heavily rely on existing links and to build on that. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Just looking in the chat box, please do, flag, raise your hand, or speak out if you have any questions. Mameni, I see your question was, is there any guidance, note, or brief on the Africa Union Year of Nutrition? I'm aware, I think there is, yes. I'm not 100% sure, but from what I know, I think there is. Somebody else might have a better idea, but I'm pretty sure there is more information on that, which we can share, absolutely. We can disseminate that information as well. So thank you for flagging. And the regional roadmap should focus on those key findings presented, looking at the joint regional efforts to move forward, I think. Absolutely, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely, we agree that I think looking at this regional roadmap will certainly use the results from the survey and from what has been suggested so far, I think, to really help frame and design the structure for the regional roadmap and how that might work. Any other points before we move on? Yeah, Mary. Any other points? No, if not, okay, that's fine. So what I'll do is the next point on the agenda is looking at the Africa Union Year of Nutrition. So Morgan, I think I'm handing over to you for this, is it?
Thank you, Andy. I'm going to put the presentation on now.
Thank you.
Ok, Patricia, je pense que c'est bon pour toi.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. The Africa Union of 2022 years of nutrition for Africa system. Okay, a reminder, under the very high authority of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Alassane Ouattara, Côte d'Ivoire, in its dual capacity as champion for monitoring the implementation of EU Agenda 2063, as member of lead group of the Sun Movement and high-level envoy for the Sun Movement, taking note of the worrying, even alarming prevalences of malnutrition in all its forms, in line with the Africa Continental Nutrition Accountability Dashboard, led the advocacy for the inclusion of nutrition as a theme of the year 2022, with expressed at the 33 session EU Conference of Head of State and Government in February 2020. Next. They can go up, please. I think.
Tu veux que je passe, Patricia?
Oui, passe.
La suivante?
Recalling that within the framework of the long-term vision summarized in Agenda 2063, the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union adopted Common Africa Aspiration, drawing on the potential of its population, in particular as well nourished and healthy human capital, having received quality education, training, with particular emphasis on vulnerable population. The Assembly of Heads of State of Government and Government during the 45 ordinary session held from 5 to 6 February 2022 in Addis Ababa adopted and launched the theme of the years 2022 of Africa Union on Nutrition. The theme is strengthening nutritional resilience and food security on the Africa continent, strengthening agri-food system, health and social protection system for the acceleration of human, social and economic capital development. This term, please, I want to say that the term stick with the reality of the moment, especially the 3 priority areas identified at the Tokyo Summit for Nutrition for Growth, to which most countries have made commitment. A decision will be made public within 2 weeks. Next. Through the 2022 Roadmap for Nutrition, the state undertake, among other things, to strengthen, create, or maintain an institutional, political, and financial environment that is sustainable and conducive to nutrition, and to better coordinate national but also regional and continental effort in this area. This requires better conscience and a common understanding of nutrition issues in Africa. Some activity I want to present is a high-level advocacy for increased commitment and investment in nutrition for human capital development at the national level, and identification of opportunity for partnership and innovating financing mechanisms, strengthening versus establishing coordination and mutual accountability framework for harmonizing action and transparency on nutrition and food security issues at national, regional, and continental level. Management of data and information system, establishment of an entirety data for better coordination and reporting at all levels. knowledge generation and dissemination, including experience sharing, as well as South-South learning, strengthening of institutional capacity to be able to implement, execute, plan activity, monitoring progress, and report on performance and achievement. Review of Africa Regional Nutrition Strategy, school feeding, and CADEP. Strengthening of the Africa Leader for Nutrition Island Initiative. Challenge. I want to share challenge for all countries. I think that summit EU and AU is finished, and they're including the theme of nutrition in the declaration, final declaration. Another challenge is that each country must push more for the theme of the years. Change the narrative. I said that no narrative is a change the speech of head of state, because the speech is not good. They present that nutrition is only challenge for agriculture. It's not only agriculture. It's all determinant. Je ne sais pas si j'ai bien dit. Another challenge is the change the political, financial, and institutional environment, and to do the malnutrition cost study, monitoring commitment on nutrition for growth, monitoring evaluation mechanism. The years, I want to say that the year is now, and I would like to allow myself in the same dynamic that is in progress. Invite you to identify maybe 3 priority activity achieved in 1 year, because in not 1 year, 2 years is past, January and February, and 2 years for the report in November and December. I think that they have only 8 months to do the years. I want to finish, and maybe investing in nutrition means building African nations that are more human, more equitable, more just, more united. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Patricia. That is really, really insightful and really, really great to hear. And I think, yeah, like you said, the Africa Union Year of Nutrition is now. So I think it's really important that we get active and get motivated to achieve what we can in these months, and really looking at how we engage with the African Union as well on this year, because it will go by fast. As we know, the past few years have gone by fast. So I think it'll be important to make sure that we really utilize this moment as a region and as a continent as well. So I'll open the floor. I know we're a little bit over time, so I'll open the floor. If there is any questions or any thoughts or any feedback, please do share. If you have any thoughts about the Africa Union presentation as well, please do let us know. There will be many more opportunities to provide feedback and thoughts, but please do share them now. Raise your hand, or please do speak out, or write in the chat box. And as Morgan said, there's also, if you'd be interested in filling in a similar survey that the Francophone countries did or are currently filling in, to help identify 3 priorities related to the Africa Union Year of Nutrition, do let us know. I think that'd be a really great way to kind of highlight some of those key priorities. Okay, so I know we're a little bit over time, so maybe people are ready to go and head off for the afternoon. So I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, please do, just let me know, or we can drop us an email. You should all have my email or your Focal Points email at the Sun Movement Secretariat. So please do let us know if you have any other questions or any thoughts. But yeah, I'll leave it there since we're over time. Perfect. Okay. I'll finish us up there then, and I'll give you all back to have your afternoon. So thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you coming along and engaging, and some of the questions that you had as well. Been really helpful to be able to understand a little bit more perspective on things and also present some of the information. We'll share the slides with you all, so you will have a copy of the slides that we presented today, so then you'll be able to reflect back and discuss them and have maybe a little bit longer time to think about and come back to us with any questions you might have. So yes, thanks so much everybody, and yeah, have a great day.
Thanks so much. Likewise. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.